When you dare to share, you break the silence. When you dare to share, you speak your truth. When you dare to share, you use the full strength of your voice. When you dare to share, it brings opportunity to own your story. So tell it, be heard, and at the same time, your sharing is someone else's learning, inspiration, motivation, empowerment, and hope. There's always an element to each of our stories that remains a secret. For some, we feel it's a dirty little secret. Dare to share your untold story exposes these secrets in a welcoming and positive way. I encourage each of you out there to dare yourself to share what is yours to tell. When we dare, it is the courage to do something really important. Let this be a vow to each and every single one of us that we take risk, we brave, confront, and face what is, while inspiring and empowering all communities. So let's break that silence and tap into mental beauty. This is Salima Jadavji, your podcast host, a practicing social worker, and your mental wellness connoisseur. Welcome to the Dare to Share Your Untold Story podcast, episode number 93. The Dark Times, from Momentum to Chaos, Ensued a Lost Sense of Self. To all my fellow listeners, before we get started, I'm just dropping in a note to give you a heads up that this podcast might be emotionally triggering for you. We do invite guests onto the show who share openly about extremely difficult life moments with exposure and impact of what the struggles have been like. The intensity of each episode could have a variable impact on your emotional and mental well-being based on your own personal story. If at any point the topic becomes uncomfortable or upsetting to you in any way, please do not pressure yourself to listen. Instead, be kind to yourself, do some self-care, and perhaps give another episode a try. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing our courageous and daring guest, Sergio Montano. Sergio is a dynamic and passionate young professional dedicated to guiding individuals and business owners toward a life of holistic well-being. As a certified yoga instructor and licensed financial planner, Sergio embodies a unique blend of physical and financial wellness expertise. His journey into the world of yoga began as a personal pursuit, eventually leading to a certification and a fervent desire to share the transformative power of yoga with others. Simultaneously, Sergio delved into the realm of finance, earning recognition as a chartered life underwriter, and currently is pursuing his certified financial planner designation. With the recent addition of fatherhood to his repertoire, Sergio has gained profound insights into the importance of balance in health, relationships, and finances. Recognizing the pervasive impact of consumer escapism on people's lives, he endeavors to guide individuals back to the fundamentals of living. Through his work, Sergio empowers clients to achieve clarity and take control of their financial destinies, fostering a life marked by both health and wellness. His commitment to helping others rediscover the essentials underscores Sergio's mission to reshape lives for the better, promoting a harmonious blend of physical, mental, and financial prosperity. Well, hello, Sergio. Welcome to the Dare to Share Your Untold Story podcast.
Hi, Salima. That was quite the intro. Thank you.
Well, I'm just letting people know all of the things that you've done, so that's on you. That's all the great things that you've accomplished. So wonderful. Sergio, I am so delighted to have you as a guest on the show today, and I am really grateful for your willingness to be here to tell your story. I've shared before that I'm truly humbled to encounter guests like yourself who allow me to tap into their vulnerabilities and their strength, insight, and inspiration that gets shared in this space. It's just incredible. It is also incredibly important that we take a stance together to help break barriers of mental stigma.
Right on. No, it's my pleasure and it's my honor, really. So I'm really excited for this podcast.
Amazing. And Sergio, just in case you're still wondering, this podcast is all about bringing forward untold stories that people go through, whether directly about a mental health struggle or something else. And we know that no matter the story, there is impact on one's own mental health in some way, which remains tucked away. So this platform, it serves in a way to break barriers of mental stigma that have been conditioned in our society. So today, together, for you and I, my hopeful mission is that both of us are here to encourage people to share and tell what individuals typically have reservation to express. And of course, I continue to bring forward a trend. It's called the mental beauty rethink. Sergio, what immediately comes to mind when you hear the phrase the mental beauty rethink?
What comes to mind when I hear the mental beauty rethink?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's celebrating and embracing people's the variety of people's emotions, thoughts, expressions, right? Having respect kind of for where people are, where people are in their life currently or where they were, where they see themselves to be. And it looks different for everybody. And if people feel comfortable celebrating and expressing that and sharing that with others,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I hear when you say that. And I haven't heard that said really before. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's my jam. And I'm gonna say that it's really beautiful the way you described what comes to mind for you. You talk about it from the perspective of it's a variety of expressions, and it's about respecting where people are, where they were, where they would like to be, and comfort in being able to express and share with others where we truly are, each of us. There were so many nuggets in what you expressed just now. It's a very intriguing way of looking at it. So thank you for sharing that. That's really awesome.
yeah, no problem.
All right. So, Sergio, now we get to do that fun thing, where we take a nice deep dive into all those parts of your untold story. Are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Amazing. Well, then let's do it. So, the first question for you is, Sergio, give us the newspaper headline of how you would title your untold story. How would it read?
From triumph to turmoil, an accomplished and beloved individual faces life altering car accident, navigating a new reality.
Say it one more time, please.
So, from triumph to turmoil, accomplished and beloved individual faces a life altering car accident, navigating a new reality.
Okay. From triumph to turmoil, accomplished and beloved individual faces life altering car accident, navigating a new reality. Well, now this title says a lot. So touch on what it means to you.
So, this is someone whose life's going in a certain way, things are good, and all of a sudden that turns into a 180, things are now bad, and there's an event, call it the car accident.
Mm-hmm.
And given the severity of that car accident, there's just a new world for that person, for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just things are now different, and the way I thought life was going, or the way I thought life is, it's now altered for me. And how do I deal with that?
Mm-hmm. Like where it was and where it is and where am I going? Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, now I'm even more intrigued because I want to know more about your story now. So,
We can
so
get into it. We'll get into
yeah,
it for
let's
sure.
do it. So let's go right there. Tell us what your untold story is all about. Give us your snapshot.
So I was, a relatively young person, and early 20s.
Okay.
And I had a good job, good benefits and pension and time off and
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for growth. And I was doing well in my job. Like I was, the work, I was able to accomplish the work, and it was understand the work and get it done on time, and even
Mm-hmm.
get it done, early. So I felt empowered at work, and I was getting promotions, and I was studying and part time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was productive. I was into my health and fitness. I was pursuing my YTT, yoga teacher training,
Mm-hmm.
my 200 hours, and I was getting all these things done, and things were moving. Right, I had the wealth, I had health. I went out for my birthday, and we went out to we got some friends together. We went out to a club, and on my way home, I was in the passenger seat in a car, and this woman was driving me home. And before I know it, we're in a car accident.
Oh my goodness.
We're headed from downtown Toronto, headed to Brampton.
Mm-hmm.
We were on the highway. on the DVP. Don't ask me why we're on the DVP. I think the Gardner was closed or something.
So the Don Valley Parkway for people who don't know Toronto.
Right, right. Yeah, people don't
Okay.
know
Which is
Toronto.
a highway.
Which
Yeah.
is the highway, right? So
Busy highway.
before I know it, we crash into the guardrail. We're going pretty fast, and all of a sudden, the cars crash into the guardrail. The
Oh my
the
gosh.
driver beside me is scared, nervous, right? She's freaking out, not knowing what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting there kind of looking around, taking her in and trying to calm her down. And then realizing that I can't move. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't move. Like I'm trying to move my body and I can't move my body.
Mm-hmm.
And right there was just like all these thoughts came into my, I was like, am I paralyzed? Like what's going on? Am I going to die? Am I going to make it from here? What are my parents going to say?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Lots of running thoughts, like lots of thoughts happening at one go.
Quickly, quickly.
Right.
And, I remember I was a lifeguard. So I knew that if you have spinal injuries, you can't wiggle your feet. You lose your nerves stop working properly, right?
Right.
So I realized that I was able to wiggle my toes. Like, oh, thank God. Like I don't think I'm paralyzed, but definitely something is wrong because I can't move. Like I'm trying to move my legs and I can't move my legs. I called 911. The driver's still freaking out. I called 911. We're in an accident.
You
And
were
people,
you were still calmer than the driver?
yes, yes, I was.
You had to call 911 for yourself, essentially.
Yes, the driver was in a panic where like she couldn't think straight. Not to diminish who she is or anything, but
Right.
just she was
But
not
that was her
thinking.
state of shock too. So she was in her own state of shock. But for some reason, you found a way to stay in some level of calmness. So, and that helped you make some
Yeah,
really good moves, right? Like calling for help as soon as you could.
yeah. Like I was able to call for help quickly. I was able to kind of be calm enough to understand what could potentially be wrong with me or what injuries I could have had at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's the yoga training, like all the deep breathing or whatnot. I don't
That's what
know.
I was thinking when you were telling me about how calm you were. I was thinking, I bet you that has something to do with the yoga mindset, you know?
Well, I don't know. It definitely, there's something about deep breathing that definitely helps. And that's
Mm-hmm.
something I've got in the habit for many
Mm-hmm.
years
Mm-hmm.
doing. And yoga's definitely contributed to that for sure. For sure. Anyway, so I pulled out my phone, I called 911, and then I remember police approaching, EMS approaching, and as soon as they lifted me from my seat because I couldn't move myself, I passed
Mm-hmm.
out. Like I was out. I remember
Mm-hmm.
just pain and then blacking out, and then all of a sudden I find myself in the hospital. And all of a sudden I find myself talking to the surgeon, orthopedic surgeon. He's like, "Yeah, we did X-rays, and you have a broken femur, broken hip. We got to take you into surgery like right away."
A broken femur and a broken hip?
Yeah, yeah.
Holy moly. Was there other injuries as well, or was that enough?
Those were the main injuries, and then I also had received I punctured my right lung. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
So they put some device in me to help me breathe, but then that healed. Like that wasn't the big thing. It was really the femur that needed the surgery and
Hmm.
needed it quickly.
That was the big one.
That was the big one. And then at that point, he's like, you could walk with a limp. There's no guarantees that the surgery will provide like a real wholesome fix. Things could go wrong in the surgery, like all these things that could go wrong. And then I was just
Right.
scared. I was very scared. Am I going to be able to do yoga? Am I going to be able to walk? Am I going to be able to, like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? You know,
Hmm.
that shook me because it's right then and there. I was like, okay, like life as it was, it's like something's changed. Like this
Yeah.
is,
It became more real. Like life is different now.
yeah, it's like, oh, life is really precious. Like before that, I was like unscathed. I felt like I was
Hmm.
invincible. Things are usually going my way, and all of a sudden it's like, oh no, like in a minute, my life can get flipped upside down.
Hmm.
And then dealing with that, and then that plus what are my parents going to think, what are they going to say, what are my friends going to say, like
Well, by this point, you saw the surgeon. No one had come to the hospital yet.
at that point no one had come to the hospital yet. Yeah,
Did anyone notify your family or like?
yeah, oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they did,
Okay.
but it took a while because no one was in communication with my family until like the next day.
Hmm.
So this
Hmm.
happened at night. I was in the hospital early morning. My family didn't find out till like in the morning when they got up.
Mm, right. My goodness, that's such a wild ride. Now, just out of curiosity, did the driver sustain any injuries like what you had?
she broke her ankle. She had a bone in her ankle and was broken,
Oh gosh.
and she also had to be hospitalized.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds horrifying. Not just where you were in life and living your full life, like living freely and in your full element, free spirited, being so present, having fun, being successful, enjoying each moment, to such a turn of events, but also how traumatic the accident was. I mean, I know you're saying you're out of it at first and they're talking about surgery, and I'm sure you're on a bunch of pain medication and maybe going in and out of sleep or something, but did you at some points have like flashbacks of the accident reoccurring in your sleep or in your mind, or did any of that happen for you?
That happened, but that was more after. That was,
Like super after.
yeah, like super after. Like once I've had surgery, once I was already out of the hospital, once
Okay,
I was back home doing rehabilitation.
right. So do you feel like your mind just went numb for a while?
During the hospitalization, for sure.
Mm. And so what was that whole experience like in the hospital? I mean, I know the doctors told you about the surgery and it was urgent and your family didn't learn about it till the next day. You're going in and out. And I know you shared some of those, like those scary thoughts and all those running thoughts. But what else did you experience while you were in the hospital?
Well, I felt like, I had the surgery relatively quick.
Hmm.
After surgery, it was laying in bed, pain.
Mm,
I felt hopeless. I felt like I couldn't go to the washroom by myself. I couldn't get out of the bed by myself. So
hmm.
everything that I needed to do, I had either nurses would help me, or at that time, my parents were there. So it'd be like my mom or my dad or my sister would help me.
Hmm.
And I just remember like this feeling of like shame and being a burden.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like just kind of being like, oh, how could I let this happen? And look how it's impacting my family. So there's that shame and
Mm, yeah,
like kind of feeling bad, right, about it. And and then it's that mixed with actual physical pain.
yeah,
There's this make wrong of how could I let this happen to, oh, my leg like hurts and my leg's swollen and I don't
yeah,
know how it's gonna heal.
yeah,
A part of me is like, oh, I just want to get out of here. I want to go back to my life.
yeah, right.
Yeah, not knowing if that's going to be a possibility. So it's like there's fear. There's a bunch of emotions.
Yeah, all the uncertainty of what happens next, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm curious, you mentioned like feeling like you were perhaps a burden and questioning yourself, like, how could I let this happen? Was your family giving you any indication that you were a burden of any kind? Or was that something you just kind of took on as a narrative in your mind?
No, it's definitely something I took on as a narrative in my mind.
Mm. How long did that last for?
That lasts for several months. Several months.
Did you let anyone know you were feeling like a burden, or you just kept that to yourself?
That's something I kept to myself. That's not something I was sharing with my family. No, definitely not.
Did you feel supported even when you felt like you were a burden to people? Like, did you feel like, okay, the supports are there, I'm okay? Or did you just feel like it was even hard to accept support because you felt like a burden?
I would say there was some guilt, like a feeling of guilt. Like I was grateful the support was there and I had that support. Like I'm very, very lucky in that regard.
Hmm.
But even still, like there's a guilt aspect to it where I'm like,
Mm,
adding new. I was like, oh, this is more work for my mom or for my dad, or
right.
I had to make them worry, or now they got to help me get to the washroom. And
Yeah. So now, as a result of this burden feeling, would you neglect yourself sometimes where, like, maybe you didn't ask for help and you're like, even for the bathroom, like holding, not going to the bathroom or not asking as often, or just not asking for certain things, like kind of thinking, like, okay, maybe I don't need this, or maybe I won't ask now, I'll ask later. Like, did you notice if you started to like
yeah,
depriving yourself unknowingly? Like,
yeah, like there was times where, I was like, okay, I'm a little hungry, but doesn't look like they're making lunch just yet.
mhm,
Like I'll just wait. I won't say anything. Like I'll just
mhm,
be hungry for a little bit longer or whatever. Or I got to use the washroom. Should I just let me hold it in? Let me hold it in. When they come upstairs, then I'll ask for help.
right.
Like that. Yeah, that happened for sure.
And how were you affected by that? Like, what did that do to you?
I don't, that's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know if I can really pinpoint that. Just what's the word? Like disempowering at the same time, right? Before the accident, I could have done this so easily,
Hmm.
or this wouldn't even be a thing if it weren't for the accident, right? Everything became, oh, like this is happening because of the accident.
And so if you were thinking this is all because of the accident and all of your thoughts kind of alluded there and went there, did you start feeling anger and frustration?
Yeah, yeah, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
What was that like?
Again, disempowering. Like things were outside my control.
Hmm.
Essentially, I felt like, okay, life is harder. It's different now. It can't be the way it was before.
Hmm.
And yeah, it was like saddening, right? Like call it anger, call it sadness.
But how would you know you're angry? What did anger look like for you? Was it something that you internalized?
It was more like I isolated myself, right? Like,
Okay, self-isolating. Okay.
yeah, like, not being as social, like not calling friends, like just being in my room, staying on the computer, like isolation. Isolation is how I dealt with it.
Hmm. Hmm. At what point did all of this change?
I think when I started getting back out into the world, right? So once rehab was done, I did a lot of physiotherapy, right? I did
Hmm.
psychotherapy, chiro, massage, and then I started going back to work, and I started new business endeavors, and started getting back out there, right? Like
Right.
I was like, okay,
Hmm.
like I can still do stuff. I can still perform. I can make things happen. I can have a love life. I can have a social life,
Yeah. Hmm.
but it took time. Like I had to be able to move again the way I remember moving, like with ease, right? For many
Right.
months, like more than 6 months, like I wasn't walking properly,
Right.
right? So I think when I started getting my mobility back, right, when I started not having like so much pain, recurring pain, and I was able to kind of get back out there and shrug off some of that fear and that anger and that resentment, not completely, but a good chunk of it.
Yeah. Right. And so, having gone through this really devastating, traumatic car accident, which completely blindsided how you were living life to what you had succumbed to, tell me more about how you were affected, going through the shock of this accident, calling for help, having immediate surgery and post surgery and post hospital, like recovery and this isolation and all of these things that you were experiencing. Can you say more about like other things that you were affected by or any other themes or obstacles that came up for you?
For sure, for sure. Well, a couple things, right? Like when it came to my work before the accident, I felt like I was learning quick and I was a performer. I was a high performer.
Hmm.
And then when I went back to work, like, it's like you start off on partial disability, right? I don't know if you know that, you might know this, right? Where you
Hmm.
start to work, maybe not the full-time hours, but you'll do like a quarter of the
A
day or
gradual.
gradual return to work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. So when I started that, I just, maybe part of it was in my head, but I felt like I was like, oh, like you're the disabled guy now. Like you're the guy that's coming from, you were off for a year and you missed all this training and all this experience. And now you're the guy who's coming back and you're behind. So I don't know that context that I created for myself. No one said anything to me. That's just how I felt.
Hmm.
My performance, like I was making, silly little mistakes and I just wasn't performing. I was not catching errors, grammatic, like even typos on the computer, and just not, didn't feel sharp, didn't feel like the high performer I was before the accident.
Hmm. Hmm.
I was dealing with pain while I was working. So I was thinking about this pain and in my hip, in my knee, and that pain actually led me to have to go for another surgery. Like I did a second surgery.
Oh, wow.
That second surgery was to try to remove the hardware that they had put in to help the bone heal. But that
Hmm.
same hardware was causing recurring pain because I don't know, those nails, like the screws that they use stick out of the bone.
Oh, gosh. That sounds painful.
Yeah, yeah, no, it is. It is. You could
Hmm.
feel it. If you touch the area, if I was sitting for too long, you could feel the pain.
Oh, my goodness.
So I'm trying to get back to work feeling that way, and it led me to go for surgery again, right? And then that same pain, that same feeling that I had was also impacting the way I exercise. I'm very avid into my exercise. Like I was working out 6 days a week, combination of weights, yoga, like plyo, like I did a bunch of stuff, right? Like Muay Thai. I was doing things.
Hmm.
Not being able to do those things like I was doing them before created sadness, right? Like a despair. All
Hmm.
that work that I did, all the time I put in, and now I'm like behind. Like I'm set back.
Yeah. Did you feel like it was like defeating, like self-defeating and
Yeah.
I don't know how will I get my life back?
Yeah, I felt self-defeated in the areas of my career, and in the area of my health, and then in the area of even like my relationships.
Mhm, mhm.
Coming from like, oh, like can't believe I put myself in this situation where I could even get in the car accident. This could happen. Like if only I did this. If only I did that.
Right. So you started to second guess and question yourself.
100%. 100%.
And how would you say your relationships were affected? Aside from like the initial like isolating and keeping it to a minimum. But once you started to get back out there, what else did you notice changing with your relationships?
I noticed that I was more reserved. I had a hard time asking for things,
Hmm.
sharing
Hmm.
opinions, taking charge on stuff. I was more like, yeah, okay, like more submissive, I guess I would say, like more like I'll let other people make the decisions and I'll go with it type of thing. Or before I'd maybe go out to more social events and stay out, maybe party. Now it's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't party. I shouldn't go out at night. If I say yes to this thing in Toronto, maybe that could lead to danger. So I said no to a lot of social opportunities.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right. Because it changed my mindset. I'm like, oh, like there's actually a level of danger when you go out at night or if you go home by car on a highway.
So it's kind of this thought process of like, I have to limit all of my activities because there could be danger. Like, so there's this potential danger.
Yeah. Yes.
So would you say you were operating from a fear-based place a lot of the time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. I would. Especially like couple years after the accident. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Really? For a couple of years?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. To the point where like I wouldn't even allow other people to drive me places,
Really?
especially girls. Yeah.
Hmm.
Because the driver was a female when
Right.
I was in that car accident. So I just had this irrational fear of like, okay, the female driver, I'll just avoid that. Like I'll just drive myself or I just won't go. I just won't say yes to that.
So how did that work, Sergio? When you were in your recovery and rehabilitation, I imagine you weren't able to drive right away. So before you were able to drive, and I'm assuming people had to drive you around to get to places. How did you manage that?
Through the car accident, because I had my insurance and the driver had her insurance, like to do all the necessary medical related stuff, I was actually like they provided a taxi.
So you felt safe in a taxi?
Yeah, like taxi, sit in the back, professional driver, big cars. It's like, okay, like not too bad.
Hmm.
And there was no highway driving. It's all residential. So I feel a little bit more at ease.
Okay.
But yeah, like I didn't go out much. Like I would only go out if I had to, which was mostly for therapy.
Right.
If I was seeing friends, they would come to me. If family would come over to me. I'd say for about a year, I wasn't really going out unless it was for medical appointments.
Would you say like all the rehabilitation you were doing was like a full-time job?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least like a heavy part-time job.
A heavy part-time job.
6 months to a year after the accident
Yeah.
for at least, yeah.
Were you living on your own when you had the accident? Because I know you mentioned like after the accident, you were with your family and didn't want to bother them and stuff.
No, no, actually I was living at home culturally and
Okay.
that's just kind of what we do.
So it wasn't like you had to adjust the environment as well. So it was something that you were familiar with, but just the way you lived life, your independent self, Sergio, the independent man, doing his own thing at his own pace in his own way. That part was really like what was disabling, right? Like it was all taken from you.
Pretty much taken from me,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it felt that way.
And the dynamics just between me and the people at home and friends was changed too.
Did it actually tarnish your relationships at all with your sister or with your mom or dad? Or do you feel like that was just the narrative in your mind?
No, that was just something I
Only
created.
your own narrative. Yeah.
Yeah, that was something I created. If anything, we probably got closer because I was at home more.
Right.
Yeah, to be honest, since that car accident, yeah, I've
You've bonded more.
bonded more. I put more value in spending time with family
Mhm.
than I do with friends now. Even before that, it was like no friends and colleagues and my own personal development, and family comes last. Since that car accident, I flipped it around because it's like who was there for me really, who
Yeah.
provided the
Yeah.
most support,
Sure.
and it was family, right? And it's like, oh shit, like I've been neglecting this a little bit.
Hmm. But it also sounds like the way you're connected to your family and those interpersonal relationships or dynamics within all of these family relationships is really healthy. And the reason I was asking that question earlier is because, sometimes I've had individuals tell me things like, I was in such a bad place that, even though my family was trying to help me, I would pick fights with them. Like I was fussy about things and they were feeling unappreciated and, it affects the relationship for some time. So I was just curious to see how that would have played out with your interactions. But it sounds like what I notice about individuals and their families is that if other family members haven't dealt with their emotional baggage, or they're not able to separate or compartmentalize or recognize that, I'm not doing this for recognition, I'm really trying to help this individual, it does shift the focus of the mindset. So it sounds like from what you're describing is that that was all very healthy and intact with your family, and now they supported you.
Yeah, I think so. Like I've never thought about that, to be honest.
Mm,
Yeah, I would probably agree with you. I'd say yeah, like we've had issues before for sure, like conflicts
mhm,
when I was even
mhm.
events before that.
Right.
But overall, no, like the way my family responded to it and was there for me, and
Yeah.
I was just grateful. There was no
Oh,
like there was
sure.
no yeah, there was nothing that they were doing that would really upset me, or I was just
Right.
pure gratitude.
Yeah. It was just your own internal struggle because of all of what was like whipped away from you, right? And such big changes and such big adjustments for you to make.
That's right.
It's the internal struggle, that turmoil. It can really be soul crushing, right? Like it sounds like you were contending with a lot and not sharing a lot. But I do appreciate, you did mention that in your rehabilitation and when you were able to recover and work through all of that, attending psychotherapy and chiropractic and massage and any other therapy that you needed, you were engaging in that. So it goes to show that you were really focused on doing what you could to regain control of your life, whatever way that was going to look like.
Yeah, yeah, I was committed to that. I was committed to that.
Hmm. So, Sergio, when people come to see me for therapy, individuals, they're typically in one of three places. Some people are getting started where they're just starting the therapy process and saying, hey, I've got all these things that I want to start working on. Or some people are in the middle. Maybe they were prompted to attend therapy as a result of something that has happened, but it's affecting other parts of their life and maybe the ripple effect of their past. And for some people, they're looking back. Maybe they want to get closure on something, or they're trying to move forward in life, or they want to look for some personal growth so they can become the best version of themselves. So, for yourself, what part of the journey would you say that you are in? Would you say that you are getting started, in the middle, or looking back?
Or looking back, I'd say I'm
Mm.
in the middle. I'd say I'm in the middle, maybe a little bit past the middle.
Okay, so you're like in betweeny.
Yeah,
Okay, so you're nearing the end of in the middle, and you're like approaching the looking back.
yeah, I'd say so.
Okay, so I have another follow up question here. So, how would you know when you actually get to the place of looking back? How would you know? What would be different?
Oh, that's such a good question. Oh my God. Like right, what came to mind right away is like I don't think I'll ever actually know.
Mm.
There's a lot of things in my life right now where it's like, okay, I can look back and say, hey, like I've crossed that Rubicon.
Let me position it in a different way. You said like I'm past the middle, but I'm not quite looking back yet, right? So when you said I'm in the middle or past the middle, what sort of influenced you to say that? There must have been something.
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, for sure. So I'm clear in my in the world of career and
Mhm,
what I do for work. It's like I'm complete that my old career is no more. So I used to work in government. I don't work in government anymore.
mhm, mhm,
I'm well positioned, well established in my new career, and I enjoy it.
mhm,
And I'm not blaming the accident for what I'm not in my
mhm.
career.
Acceptance of circumstance.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I've accepted the
Okay.
circumstance. Where
Mhm,
before I was like, oh, like if I was in the accident, maybe I could have moved up in my old career and I'd be making this money or have this position and all this, like, oh, it could have been.
mhm,
I'm done with that.
mhm. But so what aren't you done with then?
I think on the physical side of things, right? Like I'm still
Mm,
like,
okay.
yeah, I guess I would say I'm fit and I've taken care of myself since the accident, but like there's still things that I feel that I see in my performance where I'm like, oh, my hip still feels like my hips popping or my knees are sore or
Mhm,
I can't hold this wall sit as long as I could before on the left leg, the leg that I broke.
mhm.
My left leg is smaller than my right. There's things when
Yeah.
it comes to my physical body
Mhm.
that I haven't fully accepted or dealt with, I guess.
But I'm gonna challenge you on that, Sergio,
Yeah,
because I
curious.
think hearing you say that, it's like, yeah, it is the physical aspect of your body that you're focusing on so that's what's become the focus of, like, this is what I haven't been able to resolve. But I think what you've shared earlier is that these are the limitations that I just might have. Like, I don't know how much more recovery I can have from this.
Right.
So I'm thinking, why I'm challenging you is that it's the mindset, right? Because this is you going back into, there's like some insecurity, because when you're comparing your measurement one leg to the other, there might still be a small part of you unknowingly that's saying, this is not my life. I wasn't like this before. You were saying things like, you gave examples like, well, I can't do this, like
Wall sit, wall sit.
the wall fit, right? So you're still comparing yourself to an earlier time
Yes, yes.
based on your physical ability.
I definitely am.
Hmm. So there is like a mindset, emotional, mental state sort of component there that I think kind of sneaks in.
Yes, my thought or just how I think about that is it's maybe I'm wrong, but it's like a physical thing that triggers that mental thing for me.
Yeah. So like a physical trigger, like the pain.
Like a sensation, for example, a sensation,
Yes. Okay, that makes sense.
and then that triggers this state of comparing myself to before the accident, where this pain I wouldn't have thought about this pain or felt this pain or this
Hmm.
discomfort, right? Or this lack of physical performance.
Right.
So I think I'm still dealing with that. I'm still dealing with that.
Yeah. So that's the area. That's what the dealing is. It's not the actual that I can't do a wall sit for as long. It's the trigger and managing that trigger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. We went somewhere where I didn't know that we would go. So, Sergio, one thing I want to ask you is, after everything that you've shared, talking about how your story unfolded, all the different parts of it, where you are in your timeline, all of the difficulties that you went through, obstacles, can you speak specifically to how your untold story has affected your mental health? Like, I know we started to tease out the emotions you experienced, like anger and shame and feeling disempowered and sheer sadness for like losing your abilities and, the physical limitations. I don't know if you can say more about any of those things, or if there was a particular area of your mental health that kind of got bent out of shape. Is there anything you can share about that?
Well, definitely, let's just say before the accident, I never thought about mental health.
Hmm.
This is my mood, so I feel life is good and I'm not dealing with anything. But after the accident, it's like, there's clear signs of sadness, depression, wishing things were different,
Hmm.
anxiety, like not knowing the future. And even still, that it lingers. Like, it's like, okay, what if this pain leads to this? What if this means that? What if I have to go for surgery again? What if I get another car accident? Like, there's a lot of,
So a lot of what if thoughts, which are all rooted in anxious thoughts, right?
yeah, and all related, and all come from different signals, whether it's pain or
Mm,
whether it's a quick
yeah.
thought about the event that night or whatever.
Mhm.
Talking to someone who I used to work with in government, and then I'm not there anymore. Just, I don't know, different reminders, right?
Different reminders. Yeah. Memories.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's distinct.
Hmm. Hmm.
Before the accident, I never dealt with that.
Hmm.
There's nothing that I could really think of or events in my life that had that type of impact, you know what I mean, on my mental health or on how I
Right.
feel or how I think.
Now, did it ever get to any point where you were really so down that did you ever go into like a dark thought place?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Um, like I was going through so much pain that I actually, I've actually had the thought of, oh, would it be better off if I was dead? Like I had that thought. I was like, wouldn't life would just be easier if I just died? I
Hmm.
just gave up on everything.
Okay. You did go there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hmm.
I wasn't there for long.
Hmm. Hmm. You did entertain it and you did contend with it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right.
That wasn't a thing before, right? For sure.
So how did you get out of that dark place when you would go there or when you were there? Like, how did you get out of it?
Well, I had therapy. I shared that with therapist,
Okay, good.
and so I was able to talk about it.
Hmm.
And I got moving, right? Like anytime I had that thought, I was in bed, I was by myself, I wasn't doing anything. I was letting my mind wander,
Hmm.
right? So I think just getting in action, doing stuff and
Right.
creating my future, right? Like planning for my future. Like when I had those thoughts, it's like I had no future. I wasn't thinking about the future. There was
Right.
nothing to live for.
Okay. So you started to focus back on what's in your control.
Back in what's my control and what I want and what can we do?
Mhm. Mhm.
That would help. That would definitely take me out of there. I was fortunate to never stay there for long.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's just a combination of everything: physical exercise, creating plans, creating goals, creating a future to live into. That
Mhm.
was the big thing.
It sounds like it. It definitely sounds like it. Thank you for sharing all of that so openly.
Yeah, no problem.
So, Sergio, what is your key message to the listeners of our show? What's the key pieces that you really want them to know?
Yeah, I think a part of me, I think what got me into the situation that I was in was I was very in a rush all the time. I was very impulsive.
Mhm.
I think there's value in taking your time and slowing down a bit in life.
Mhm.
For
Mhm.
me at that time, I was like, I got to do this, I got to accomplish that. There was all this urgency to get so much done and to be so much
Mhm.
more than who I was at the time. So I think it's good to slow down and smell the roses.
Mhm.
Also, I think having a future set out, having goals, having things that are more than just about yourself. I think that's, if you're in a dark place or if you're going through something, I think don't forget about the future that you can still create, regardless of what kind of incapacities you have or physical ailments, or there's always something to look forward to and something to be grateful for.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think another one, if you're not close with your mom or your dad or family members, I think those are people that you want to make an effort to be close with and to honor,
Mhm.
not take that for granted, because I know I did. And I think that was where some of the shame came from, right? I was like, oh, I took them for granted, and look how much they're
Right.
here for me. Look how much they're doing for me.
Right.
So
It's a great message for the listeners. So, Sergio, tell me, I'm really curious about what was game changing for you in terms of inspiration. What was close to you? Like, in terms of your inspiration, what was really reflective of your untold story? Like, was there like a quote or a book or something that really spoke to you as you were pivoting or that kind of marked your pivot?
there wasn't a quote or a person per se, but really slowing down and getting into meditation was helpful. Like
Mm-hmm.
before, I was very, what's the word I'm looking for? Like fiery and physical and intense. And I think there was some magic in slowing down and going inward,
Mm-hmm.
just really being with myself. Yeah, I was in such a rush that I couldn't really be with my thoughts, my emotions, etc.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the meditation helped you like connect to your emotions and to yourself.
Yeah, and to just be with the physical sensations that I felt, whether it's in my knee or my hip or whatever pain area,
Mhm.
that helped a lot. That helped a lot.
Yeah, that's a great reminder for people, and that's really great. Okay, so tell me what is a cause or an organization that has been impactful to you on your journey that you would like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, sure. There's a professional development company called Landmark Worldwide.
Okay.
They're in Toronto. They're all over the world, but they're in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
That was helpful in my mental health journey, I would say. Like it helped me separate facts from fiction, where I
Mm-hmm.
was making up a lot of fiction
Mm-hmm.
based on some facts, and I let that fiction drive my emotions in different directions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being able to separate that in real time or when it's happening is very helpful in life and gives you so much power.
Yeah. It sounds like you learned concrete tools
Yes, for sure.
to help you. Yeah. All right. And so, how can people connect with you if they would like to? What platforms are you findable on?
On the big ones, people could find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. If they want to Google longevity achieved, Google that, go to our website. You could find me there, connect with me there.
Amazing. Well, we have taken all of your social handles. We've got all your handles, so we'll make sure they should already be on your show notes page. So people can click on your name and check you out and have a way to connect with you if they want. So that's perfect. So, Sergio, guess what?
What?
You've just dared yourself to share. Congrats.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It feels great. It feels great.
Yeah. Sergio, you know what? I would really just like to take a moment to express my gratitude for the deep story shared in this space today. It's been really refreshing to hear the delicate pieces of your story, the impact, the wounding, and how you've been able to get to a place of grounding as well. Like I was saying, your willingness to share deeply without any hesitation, this is really admirable. And your story is definitely encouraging, and it must be shared and needs to be heard. And so I'm truly grateful to have been able to hear and witness your story today. So thank you for the deep conversation and for all the daring and sharing.
No, thank you, Salim. It was a pleasure. It's my honor.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. So once again, Sergio, thank you for being part of Dare to Share Your Untold Story and helping to be a voice in breaking down the barriers of mental stigma. To all of our listeners, if you like what you've been hearing on this podcast and you want to be part of breaking down barriers of mental stigma, I invite you to go wherever you are listening to the episode and hit subscribe. Leave us a comment or a review of the episode and maybe how you relate to it. To learn more about what we offer, visit www.daretoheal.co. And if you are feeling ready and brave to share, please submit your story by visiting www.daretoshare.co. Thanks for joining in.